now, meeting 3.
This meeting is being recorded.
So we will call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. And I will do the territorial recognition. So we begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendships of Indigenous people. And with that, we can begin our meeting. So we'll go to the agenda approval. We'll just go for a mover and a seconder on that. If you want to raise your hand. Thank you, Maggie. And Rajat. Excellent. Okay, anybody opposed of approving the agenda? Any abstentions? Cool, then I think that's a pretty clear-cut vote. Moving on to the minutes approval. Reminder, if you were not in the last meeting, then you please abstain for this vote, but I will get a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Charlie. And Medea. And so we'll go all those opposed. And hands up for abstentions. Maggie and Rajat. Is that everyone? All right. So I think that's 6-2, or yeah, you got it. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, before we get into the refund and prize policy, I do have another question of the day for you. So if you weren't in attendance at the last meeting, I'm going to start these meetings by doing a daily question, just because I think it allows us to kind of get to know each other a little bit better, but also makes us a little more comfortable speaking in front of each other. So today's question is, what is the strangest food that you have ever eaten? So I'll start. Strangest thing I've ever had, my grandmother, she used to cook cow liver. So every once in a while I had liver and onions on my grandma's place. The texture was very weird, but otherwise it tastes mostly just like steak. I'm just gonna go down the list. Kaylee, would you like to share?
I don't think I have anything strange.
Oh, well, that's
unfortunately. Sorry.
Fair enough. Keep it going. Medea, what do you got for us?
I'm like Kaylee, I don't have confidence trying new food. I stick to my...
That's okay. All right. We'll just keep it going down the list. Hinkle, what you got for us?
I don't think I have anything either. I'll look at it, and if it doesn't look good, I'll try something.
Oh, maybe I asked the wrong question today. James, bring it home. What do you got?
I thought this was such a good question, and I'm
heavily
disappointed in Kaylee, Medea, and Hinkle. The weirdest thing I have eaten, so I did an exchange in high school in Japan, and I had horse sashimi.
See, that makes the list. That's pretty good for the list.
It was not good. It just tasted like bland, like plain meat. Like it had no flavor. And then like I had another piece with like soy sauce and like a little piece of an onion, and it was a little bit better. But yeah, it was weird.
Nice. Solid. Thanks for sharing. Charlie.
Okay, yeah. So what instantly comes to mind is that I had moose before, which awful. Didn't like it.
Really?
Yeah, no, not a fan. Didn't like the texture, but that's probably the weirdest thing I've had.
Did you have like was it steak or was it like jerky or?
It was weird. It's like if my family's French, right? So they made like it's like almost like a sauce or something. I don't even know what it is. Like you could like dip it in like with a cracker or something, or you could just have it as a meat itself too. We had both because a family member brought it down, but no, not a fan.
Right on. Good to know. Don't try moose. Rajat, go ahead.
Maybe like I just turned veg. Like I just started eating chicken like a year ago. So chicken is the most strangest thing, but also vegan cheese, maybe. Yeah.
Vegan cheese. That's valid. I'll accept that. Ezra? Maybe. Okay. For time's sake, we'll just keep keep on going. Oh, hi, she's here. The question is, Robert, what is the strangest food that you've ever eaten? Octopus. That works. That's a good one. Thanks for sharing. Who was next on the list? Benoit, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think so. I have eaten any weirdest food, but I did try cow liver. It's like a regular thing.
Yeah.
Honestly,
apparently it's
it is kind of weird. Like the texture is not as
pretty
regular
chewy.
meat.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it is.
it's hard to describe. I can't really explain it, but God to know I'm not the only one who's tried it. Maggie, you want to go ahead?
I had escargot, but I couldn't get over like the slimy texture, so I kind of like spit it out. I didn't really swallow it.
Was this like just when you were in Montreal then, or?
Yeah, so I was like with a bunch of my friends and they like kept on insisting I need to try it. And I'm like a really picky eater, so I was like, okay, I'll do it, but I didn't really eat
Not
it.
good. Right on. All right. Gabby.
I've tried a lot of weird stuff this year.
I imagine.
I would say probably like I had eel and I also ate like a pig eye and pig brain. Yeah,
I think
it
you win.
was very interesting.
Yeah. What were the flavor profiles?
The pig eye didn't really taste like much. It was just like a weird texture, but the brain was like
Naturally.
very salty. It just tasted like salty meat.
Fun.
Yeah.
All right. Big brain. Very cool. Ratik, pass it to you.
I'll be honest with you, my memory is terrible. I cannot remember anything for the life of me sometimes, but
Just lie then. Just make up something.
the only thing I can probably think of is octopus that I've had at sushi restaurants. And honestly, it tasted pretty good.
It's not bad, right?
It was kind of bland, but I kind of like the way it tasted. It was like a little crunchy flavor to it, so not bad. Not bad.
Honestly, yeah, it is pretty good. Octopus, I've had it at like Wind and stuff. It's quite tasty. Brielle, strangest thing you've ever eaten? Robert, I'm just seeing your answer in the chat there. I like it. Very nutritious. Okay. Okay. Brielle, if you want to put your answer in the chat even, that would be great. If not, we can just continue to move on. Thank you everyone for participating. I think those are just kind of fun ways to start our meetings. Now jumping into business, I believe next up we have our refund and prize policy. Is Celine joining the call or?
I told her to join around 5:10 because I thought it would take us about 10 minutes to start.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want, I could go ahead and do the club's policy. That would be a really quick one, or we can wait.
Sure. Real quick while we're waiting, actually, I do have a couple like quick housekeeping notes I could go over. First off, if anybody hasn't picked up their jersey yet, I believe there is still a few in James's office. I'm sure he'd love to get those out of there. Also, I just want to get a quick show of hands of everybody who's in here. There may be something coming up in the next couple of weeks that we may need to have ideally an in-person meeting for. So I'm just kind of wanting to get a rough head count. If you could just put your hand up, who would be able to, who's either living in Niagara this summer or would be able to attend a meeting at Brock in person this summer. If you just want to quick throw your hand up and we can do a head count.
Wait, I just have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be back in like about a week. I'll be back in about a week and a half, and I live in Niagara. So if it's like after that, I'm good.
When do you get back? Like exactly the date?
August 6th.
James is giving me the thumbs up. I think that works.
For me, it honestly depends on what days I'm working. Do you guys hear that sound too? Okay. Good, I'm not going crazy. Anyways, yeah, it all depends on when I'm working because I work 2 jobs right now. That sound is very annoying, and they're both part-time but equivalent to 40-hour shifts. So it just depends. I might be able to just exchange a shift, but most likely yes.
Sure. So with like it is obviously, this will be an in-camera meeting, so obviously it'll be very confidential. Again, I understand like it'll be kind of a last minute thing in the summer. So, obviously I don't expect everybody to be in attendance, but we do need to get quorum still. So we're just trying to get an idea if it would work easier to be in person or online. Ideally, I think it would be in person, but if we do need to move it online, we can still do that as well. So that's kind of what we're going for. Yeah, if you got something to say, go ahead, Ratik.
When would the meeting be, by the way?
So it hasn't been set yet. We are waiting to hear from Vita, our lawyer. You may remember her from the training day. So once we hear back from her, we'll get a specific date out to you. All right. So I think I have 6 of you down then for being in attendance. Well, that includes James, but I'll take that. So thank you for that. Go ahead and put your hands down. Does that put us at 8:10 or 5:10? Sorry, 5:12. Yeah, if Celine's not here, I'm good to go ahead with the club's policy then.
Okay, it should be pretty quick. I'll just share my screen. Sorry, Robert, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think we keep hearing this feedback loop perhaps on our call. So maybe if we can have everyone that is not speaking just mute. So I'll mute and if that kind of thing, because I don't know what that is.
I think that may be me. I'm in the boardroom in the office right now, and there is like this high-pitched kind of noise. I don't know if it's the lights or what. I didn't know if it'd be loud enough that you guys could hear it, but I'll try to keep myself muted when I'm not speaking. Then apologies about that.
That sounds about right. The office. Okay. Okay, so this is just a very quick change that I'm requesting the board approve in the club's policy, which is policy 500. There will be a handful of other changes related to club's banking and a few other things that we're working on that will come in August or September. But this is something a little more time sensitive that I was hoping the board could take a look at today. So it's just one quick little section here, but I'll give an explanation. Right now, there's a rule in our policy that we can't have clubs that have duplicate mandates. So we can't have 2 anime clubs, we can't have 2 improv clubs. And the reason we do that is so that clubs are not in competition with each other. And, it's a clear distinction. If you're interested in something, there's a very distinct club that you join to to meet people and participate in their activities and all the other great things that clubs do. We've come to a situation, and this has been going on for a few years, but we feel like it needs to be addressed right now, where we have a club that is not in conflict with another club, but in conflict with a Brock Recreation Club. So Brock also has clubs of recreational nature. And, they do their own thing and they have their own clubs manager and their own rules that they have to follow being a Brock sports club. And so what we have now is one of our clubs that has a branch that competes competitively against the Brock club as well. And it's been a bit of a sticking point for a few years. We've had talks with Brock Athletics on how we can, make this work, and just doesn't seem to be working. So we'd like to draw a very clear line in our policy and put in a mandate that says that clubs with an athletic nature, they need to stay recreational. And there comes a bit of a risk too when they start getting to the level of competition where they may not have the coaches or the proper facilities. It's just a better home for them to be with Brock's Recreation. So we have talked to Brock Recreation about potentially making this change. They are in favor of it. They have assured us that if we go ahead and make this change, that they are capable of taking on additional members to their to their club as well. So if part of this club shuts down, it will still continue on the recreational side, but the competitive side, the individuals who want to compete will go to Brock Recreation, and Brock Recreation is fully able to take on those additional athletes. We're in the situation now where it's just one club that kind of falls under that mandate, but we do have a few other clubs that could get there, that are of athletic nature, that currently don't compete but may want to in the future. So we would like to put this in now to kind of prevent that from happening going forward. So that's really the change. The only other thing I'll add is that I've asked our lawyer, Matthew, to help us make a handful of changes to this policy, primarily around this change, around club funding. We also have to add in some indemnification clauses into the ratification. So he's working on some stuff for clubs. I'm waiting for him to get back to me. He may have a better way to word this, or a way that he would recommend this be worded. If he comes back with a different way, I'll bring it back to the board to get approval on the wording. But this club is waiting to be ratified, and I would like to get back to them before our next meeting so that they can properly plan for September. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'll pass it over to Robert right away, who's got his hand up. Thank you, Kaylee, for presenting.
Thanks, Kaylee. Just a really kind of point of clarification. So for example, if students wanted to have a Brock skating club, they could have a Brock skating club. That's cool. But if they want to go compete in Ontario University Athletics, for example, as the figure skating team, that's really something that Brock Athletics and Recreation does. Likewise, we do have a club, for example, that has Brock Badminton, and certainly students want to come and play in the gym and have badminton. We also have a table tennis team, and they just want to play with other students. Cool. As soon as they get into this competition against other schools, they're better. As the former director of athletics, I think pretty strongly they're better off being in an athletics realm, because that's what the Department of Athletics does. The other thing to let you know too, and I'm not sure you're aware of this, but as students, you actually fund athletics and recreation to the tune of about $4.25 million, and you fund BUSU to the tune of about $2 million. So certainly there's actually greater funding in athletics and recreation than there is even in BUSU. So back over to you guys.
Thank you for that, Robert. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns based around the club's policy changes here? Great. If there is no questions, then I think we'll just move straight to the vote. So if I could get a mover. Oh, 1 second. I got to read the motion. Be it resolved, board approves the changes to the club's policy as presented. I've got Benoit and Medea as a mover and a seconder.
Oh no, I had a question.
Oh, sorry, Benoit, you had a question. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
A question.
Oh yeah, so just a few changes. Like I was going through the club's policy. It's not like a major change. The appeal process, the section where it mentions the appeal process, I think it would be helpful to provide like a clear outline of the steps and the timeline for the appeal process, because I think that's not included. And I think it's also good to include the body or committee responsible for hearing the appeal. That's one thing I noticed, and the other thing that I noticed was the clarification on the ratification process. The policy does mention that BUSU Clubs Department will accept proposals for new clubs during specific ratification periods, but it doesn't really state the exact dates for those periods. I think it would be nice if we provide a link to the official page where the dates are updated regularly.
Thanks, Benoit. I made note of that.
So with those then, could we, because I think those are great points as well, Benoit, would we be able to, I guess we wouldn't be able to add those in right now, obviously, but could it come back to the board again, like at the next meeting by chance?
Yeah, we have a handful of changes we're making around funding and stuff. So I'll make a point about the to review the appeal process and see if we can clarify a bit more on how that works. For the ratification, it's meant to be vague in the policy because the timeline may change year to year. So I wouldn't put a date in there, but it will be on our website, and the club's toolbox. If you haven't seen it on our website, it's been given a refresh, so it's a lot easier to navigate than it was previously.
Okay, great, thank you. Medea, you had a question as well? You wanna go ahead?
Yeah, this is just a question I'm just curious about. I would appreciate if you could clarify. So when you say that there are clubs for badminton, tennis, cricket, and if they want to go for friendly competitions with, for say, Niagara College, so would that not be allowed to do if they have a club, or?
No, I wouldn't go so far as say that wouldn't be allowed, because I still think that would be more recreational than, like, they wouldn't be paying a fee to compete in a competition. Like, I think we would have to do it on a case-by-case basis, but I don't think, a friendly match between Niagara College would be prevented with that change.
I think, sorry, go ahead, Kaylee.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think where we kind of get at to the point of like, we can't have them competing is if like anything that's OUA sanctioned. So like like where there is competitions for those teams, but if it's like club to club, that would be okay though, yeah? Yeah, okay, excellent. James, you got your hand up, go ahead.
Like, just on Medea's question, just like a small note, clubs have to be 80% Brock students, so you can have 20% of your club be like community members, and like essentially that can be like Niagara College students in a way. So I don't think that would be much of a problem, and it is up to like interpretation, obviously, as well, as Kaylee was mentioning.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great questions. If there are no more questions, then I will read the motion. Be resolved, board approves the changes to the club's policy as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Gabby and Medea. I guess Benoit had his hand up at the same time as well. Okay, all those opposed? James, your hand is still up. There you go. Any abstentions? And then I believe that is 12-0-0. Okay, great.
And
One down.
Is here.
Celine is here. Excellent. So we will pass it over to her then to do the refund and prize policies. And we have two motions here to vote on.
Hi, Celine, are you there?
Kaylee, it's 11-0, not 12. Lena's not here.
Oh. Thank you.
Good catch.
Price policy. Sorry, I'm just going to bring it up. Celine, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm just need to turn up the volume because I can't hear anything.
It's okay.
Okay, now I can hear. Okay, all right. Can I just start?
Whenever you're ready, Celine.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Celine. I'm the BUSU events manager. And I'm presenting two policies today. One is a prize policy and a refund policy for BUSU. So since my role is in events, I often get asked questions about what happens when a person doesn't pick up their prize, or they bought a ticket to an event, but then they didn't end up coming for whatever reason. So with this policy, it'll be something that's posted on our website, as well as if they're purchasing a ticket, a confirmation email can be sent with like the outline of what would happen if you want a refund. Not that we charge for many events, but when we do, this is something that would come into effect. So since Kaylee sent over the documents, you might have had some time to read over the policy. I'll just give a quick spark notes about what's in it. Pretty much just letting students know after a given amount of time, after you might have won a prize, whether that's a social media giveaway or at an event, you have X amount of time to pick up the prize. Otherwise, we will be left with prizes for years. Sometimes the funds might even expire. So having a plan in place for what to do with those prizes that aren't collected is what's outlined here. Kaylee, if you don't mind flipping over to the refund policy. Okay, perfect. So the refund policy, pretty much to summarize like how students would request for a refund. So they would go through our receptionist, who would then relay that to someone on the marketing team, who can then extract the funds or issue whatever is needed to refund the student for their purchase ticket. Of course, this comes with some parameters. If you purchase a ticket and you just decided not to go to the event, that's not something that we are refunding. But of course, if there was a cancellation, all students would be refunded for their tickets. And further in the policy gives like detailed outlines of different types of scenarios where a refund would be issued to a student. So that's just the spark notes, but I open the floor to any questions anyone might have about the policies.
Okay, great. Thank you, Celine, for presenting and for sharing that. If anyone has questions, now would be your opportunity to ask. So go ahead and raise your hand. Looks like we don't have any questions at the current moment. So Kaylee, can I get you to pull the motion up, please?
I had put it as one with a be it further resolved, but however you guys want to do it.
Yeah, I think that actually works better. Just do it kind of all in one go. So be it resolved that board approves the prize policy as presented, and be it further resolved that board approves the refund policy as presented. Could I please get a mover and a seconder for this? Inkal and Rajat. And then we'll do any opposed, abstentions, and that is another 11-0-0 vote. Okay. Thanks for coming in, Celine.
Okay,
Appreciate
great. That was easy. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your night.
All right, take care. Kaylee, is Dave going to make it onto the call?
No, it'll just be me.
No, okay, perfect. Then whenever you're ready, we'll talk about the green levy requests.
Yeah, I'm just going to pull it up. I apologize. There were a lot of documents that went along with this one. The quotes were quite long and detailed. Obviously, that's a good thing. So I'm just showing my screen. I'm just going to pull up the topic sheet. So this is by far the biggest request I've brought to the board. Quite a lot of money, but a really exciting project that I'm hoping that we can move forward on. So the request is for $216,000 from the Green Levy to transition to sustainable lighting in the Student Alumni Center. And I want to make a note that that includes the entire building. So the floor with the offices, the main floor, just technically level 2, even though it's the ground level, with Union Station, all of the food outlets, the Brock TV space, the Brock Press space, the hallways leading into the offices. And there was also some lighting in the basement that's going to be switched over that you don't want to go down there. It's awful. But the background, I won't go through this again because it was the same as the last meeting where I made the Green Levy request. But going off of the sustainability plan that Brock Sustainable helped us with, we wanted to find bigger projects to take on that were going to make a more impactful change to the sustainability at Brock and at BUSU. And so there were 2 things that we were looking to have done this year and next year was getting the lights replaced and getting the windows replaced. So we had 2 lighting suppliers come in and provide quotes. We had 3 window suppliers come in and provide quotes. Wasn't particularly impressed with any of the window suppliers. They kind of came in, gave their quotes, didn't answer very many questions, didn't provide a lot of different options. So also thought it may be too much to take on doing both at once in August and into the fall semester. So this is what we're looking to do for the rest of August. Going into fall semester is getting the lights replaced. So I've been working really closely with Brock's manager of mechanical services. His name's Scott. He is the light expert at Brock. And I kept thinking in my head when I was going through this, you know, what Matthew and Vita said during the training was don't out-expert the experts, because I don't know anything about lights, but they certainly do. And I learned quite a bit just from going through the building with them. So the first quote that we got was from a company called EnerSaver, and it was mostly just to replace the actual lights, kind of like a 1-for-1 switch. So they would come in, it's kind of the cheapest option. They would find a bulb, replace it with something that was energy efficient. Something nice that they provided was this graphic here to outline the amount of energy that we're looking to save. So just by changing over the light bulbs, we're going to see a 67% reduction in our energy usage, which is outlined there, almost $10,000 estimated per year. We're also going to save on maintenance because these lights obviously last longer. The ones that we have are much older. They need to be replaced quite a bit. And you'll see that the payback on this project is going to be under 9 years. It's going to pay for itself, which is really great. So that was the first quote that we got. They came in one morning for a couple hours, just kind of made note of every light and the bulbs that we needed to get switched out. And you see that the cost is going to be around $122,000. And of course, there's some additional government rebates that we can look at getting for making the switch over. The second quote, which is the quote that we'd like to go with, it's for a lighting supplier called Gray Bar. And it was the first company that Scott recommended that we work with because they have a lot of experience working with them. He said they're nothing but good things to say about them. So they came into the office. They met with me 3 different times to go over our requirements for lighting. And then they went downstairs and met with Dave a couple times as well too, to see what he needed down in Union Station and in Isaacs. And what we really liked about this supplier was that, not only were they going to switch us over to energy efficient lighting, they also had like a design element to it where there's a lot of lights in our office and in Union Station that are ugly and they're old and they're outdated. She was actually laughing a little bit because if you go out on the second floor of Isaacs, where the railing looks down, if you look up at the ceiling, there's just like a mishmash of pot lights. Half of them don't work. Some of them look broken. It's a big mess. And, she says, right away, you need just to have uniform lighting here. You need it to look nice. You want it to look nice. And something else I really liked about the suppliers, they met with some different people in the office. So they met with our bar manager to find out the type of events that they had in that space. So she's going to provide us with lights that are actually dimmable up in Isaacs. So when she's having, an acoustic night, she can dim the lights and it's not just, bright lights on or lights completely off. So we were really impressed with this supplier. She asked us a lot of questions. We asked her a lot of questions. She was very responsive. And like I said, Brock's manager of electrical services, he couldn't recommend her enough. So that company, though, it's a lighting supplier. they don't do the install themselves. So we would purchase the lightings from this company, Gray Bar, and then the next step would be to have a contractor, and Brock prefers to use one called Echo. They come in and do all the install. And a good thing is that Echo has worked with Gray Bar and they've worked with Scott, so they all know each other really well. They're very familiar with the campus, and it seems like they it won't be a difficult job for them to do. As far as timeline goes, they're actually ready, if this gets approved, to come in later this week to meet with the rest of the team to get the plan together on how it would work. So it would be a quick turnaround. They are able to spend the majority of August in our space, making sure that the common areas where students will be, so in Isaacs and Union Station, out in the hallways, that's all done for September. And then they'll work through the office probably during reading week, maybe into December. Maybe there's some times when, our office is a bit quieter that they can come in, but they're really willing to accommodate our schedule to make sure that they're not kind of disrupting what's going on in the office. So yeah, that's the quote. You'll see there that so it's $98,000 for the lights, fixtures, and switches. As for Scott's recommendation, kind of rule of thumb, you'll double that for the labor. He's confident that they'll come in at that $98,000 or under price point. And then I've added in a bit of a contingency just in case something comes up. If you do look at the quote, if you go through the detailed quote, you'll see there's actually a few extra of some of the common units that are going to be put in. They wanted to order extra, so we had them in case something happens. So they're also looking ahead to the future for us. So that's what I got for you. If you have any technical questions, I am happy to ask them and get back to us. But I was really hoping to get this approved today so I can start the work later this week and we can get some nice lights in our building.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Kaylee. I just really want to quickly highlight, in case you didn't see Robert's message in the chat, that the lights have not been replaced since the Alumni Center opened in 1991, so 32 years ago. I don't think many of us on the call were alive at 1991. There may be a few exceptions in there, but I think a few of us were probably not born yet, so probably a good idea to change them out now. Does anyone have any questions for Kaylee? Doesn't look like it. So let's go ahead and move to the motion, which is, be it resolved that board approves $216,000 from the green levy surplus to replace lighting in the Student Alumni Center. Mover and seconder, if you please. Medea and Charlie. Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Then I guess we're all for.
Thanks, everyone. I'll keep you guys posted on how it goes.
Thank you very much for that, Kaylee. I have to say we're kind of flying through this meeting. We're moving on to the executive priorities. Is it just you presenting that, James, or do we have the whole team coming?
So since we are flying through, we have the executives. We have an event later tonight after this meeting. So the vice president stepped out of the office to grab pizza and snacks. So if we could skip to our reports and then come back.
Absolutely.
We'll be back in, they said 10 to 15 minutes, about 10 to 15 minutes ago, but they're never really on time. So they'll be here soon.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead with your report then? And then, or should we do Robert's first? Whoever wants to go first can go ahead. It's up to you two.
Whichever one Kaylee pulls up. Oh, they're back. I just got texted. We're back. So we can do the executive priorities, because that's probably more important than the reports. Get those out the way.
Yeah. This one, so the priorities we will be voting on, and then just the reports after this. It's just for our information. So
Kaylee, if you pop up my report, I could probably get it out the way by the time they walk in and join the call and stuff. I think Robert's is a little bit longer than mine is. So
You see it? Did I? No, I didn't share it. Sorry.
okay, so I think it was the day after our last meeting, had the last Board of Trustees meeting. There was the annual dinner. I attended with Robert and Yasmin and Andrea. We sat with the vice president of Andrew Peller Wineries, which was quite fun chatting with him. Civic Connect, the day of our last board meeting, we had our first session. So we've finished all our sessions since then. And the workshops were soft skills, personality dimensions, and goal setting, which is what is coming up after this. We will bring you our goals. Oh yeah, put that right there. It said presented because I thought this would be after, but so for CASA last week, Alyssa and I attended the Policy and Strategy Conference in Fredericton. We set advocacy priorities for the year amongst all CASA schools. So they were student financial aid, housing, and mental health. I also have been sitting on the EDI and the federal policy committees. So we've had a couple meetings and then some in person, obviously, when we were in Fredericton. We also got media training, which I actually enjoyed this media training a lot better than the one we received from the Brock News. So that was really good. And we got some info on copyright in Canada, because that's a big way that CASA can have some effect on post-secondary education. They can bring down your textbook costs and stuff like that through copyright. And then student financial aid is that acronym at the end. I can't remember. Canadian Student Financial Aid something. Western, we visited the Western USC, which is our counterpart at Western University. They showed us their building, which is a lot bigger than ours. They explained to us their structure and their governance, which they have a huge council system. It's quite interesting. We obviously got rid of BUSAC, so I found that quite interesting. And then their structure, just how their office works. They're also quite a bit bigger than we are. They have more students, they get more fees, they have more money, they can pay more staff. So for Smart Start, the first day of tabling took place July 7th. Alex, of course, works for Smart Start as well. So there have been 5 dates, and there was one today that was not much of a success. There was 10 people there, so it finished quite early today. So we basically just give incoming students the rundown on BUSU. Today was actually transfer students specifically, and I think that's why there wasn't that many people. So we mainly focus on Badger Fest and events and the new BUSU Advisory Committee and the dental plan and the bus pass and stuff like that. So we have 2 more days this week, Thursday and Saturday. And then the event I was talking about after this is LEAP. So LEAP is another program for incoming first years, where essentially they come and they stay in residence. I think it's for a night or two. I don't know if it's one night or 2 nights. But one of the nights they have a fire pit out at Alfie's Trough, and they have invited the executives the past 2 years. I don't know if they did that before. Well, there was COVID. So that's where we're going after this. We're going to go chat and just play some campfire games with some first years and just talk to them about BUSU. And then in terms of the budget, so of course at the last meeting, you all approved our professional development plan for the year, and we needed to find some extra money in the Division 1 budget. So Robert moved some things around for certain things that maybe throughout the year, if you don't use it, you're not going to use it if you haven't already. So we were able to find some money there. And then Carly and I needed to find another 10,000, but just to play it safe, because the numbers that we did present were like at the time of, and some ticket prices had gone up and moved around and stuff like that, and there were some things we didn't account for. We wanted to play it safe and find 20,000. We've found it. We still have some playing to do, but that's just a bit of an update on that part, because there were questions last time of where will this money come from. So we are on the final stages. I think Carly and I and Robert will probably have some chats about this in the near future. We've also continued to have meetings with politicians. So we met with the mayor of Thorold, a city councillor who lives in the Winterberry area, Anthony Longo, and Robert, do you know what the A stands for in that title? It's something. Oh wait, I have his business card. Chief Administrative Officer of Thorold Manoj. So we'd mainly talked about transit and housing, and there was additional discussions about the Winterberry bus route that has been gone for quite a few years now. And they took particular interest in parking at Brock and the excessive cars that are parked on the road in Thorold. So we'd spent quite a bit of time with that. It was not really productive, but they wanted to talk about it. We also met with a counselor from Lincoln, Counselor Pachareva. His son actually goes to Brock. He's on the transit board, so that's mainly what we talked to him about, and student jobs as well. And then in terms of Brock meetings, we've continued to meet with Brock admin. We've met with the Vice President of Retreats, Tim Kenyon. I also saw him walk through today at Smart Start. We've met with the AVP of Professional Continuing Studies, April Dawn Blackwell. Robert and I met yesterday with the alumni president, Chris Ventura. And then yesterday, Carly and I met with the Dean of Faculty of Education. And this morning we met with the Dean of the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences. Kaylee, can you keep scrolling? Or am I just not seeing it scroll? Oh. So Carly and Andrea and I, Andrea, our former co-president and VPUA, if you are not aware, has been retained by BUSU to work specifically on the new student center. So we had a meeting with Vanessa Dupuis, who is Dr. Riggs' executive director, Brad Clark, who's the AVP of students, and Scott Johnston, who is the AVP of, what's his actual title? Infrastructure, Robert? Is that his title?
Facilities management.
Facilities, okay. So we discussed, and it seems like we're going to be going through another needs assessment study done by the Educational Consulting Services, and we have a meeting on Friday with them to discuss. The GB mural contest has come to a close, and the winner is actually a BUSU employee. Sam from Brock TV won with a really nice graphic. You guys will see that soon enough. And then today, Carly and Alyssa and I attended a student union leaders roundtable to talk about gender-based sexual violence. Then we have here some updates on the VPs. So Alyssa was quoted in the St. Catharines Standard. Obviously, as mentioned, we both attended CASA. She's had some USA meetings with the steering committee and for her fall policy paper, and as well as the politician meetings, she was there as well, and a couple of the Brock meetings and the roundtable that we had today. As for Carly, Carly coordinated all the Civic Connect training sessions, so shout out to Carly for that one. She's had some transit meetings, so the bus pass will remain stickers for this year. I hear they were pushing for an app, but that would just create a myriad of other problems. She's had some Senate meetings, so the new Senate term will be starting soon. And then also was in the politician meetings and the Brock meetings that are listed there, and as well as the roundtable that I mentioned. And then Aisha has obviously been planning Badger Fest and fall and winter events, sorry. And then she's had some working groups here for Welcome Week and for volunteers, and has attended the meetings with politicians and Brock admin as well. And she's also had a meeting by herself with the Grad Student Association. And that is it for my report.
Well, thank you for sharing, James. Busy couple of weeks as usual. If anyone has any questions, either for James or I guess our entire executive team is here. So if you had any questions for them as well, now would be the opportunity. If we are all good on questions, though, then we can just go ahead and move into our executive priorities. We've got the full team here to present to us, so I'll pass it over to you to take it away.
Yeah, I will be sharing my screen because Kaylee just messaged and said somebody, or Kaylee, are you back? Can you do it, or do you want me to do it?
I just gotta step out for 1 sec.
Okay, I will share my screen then. Hold on, everyone, sorry. Can we see this? Okay, hate sharing my screen because it messes up the whole like layout. All right. So as I had mentioned in the report, we had some training with CiviConnect, and they gave us some insight on how to set goals. So the goals that we were setting were SMART goals. So every letter in SMART has a word. So it is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound or timely. Why is it not changing the slide? There we go. So these aren't the specific goals, but when we were meeting as a team to think of goals, these 4 priorities kind of came up. So these will be like priorities that all the goals essentially fall under at least one of these. Ideally, they fall under all of them. And essentially, if we are going to do something this year, these are kind of like pillars that we will go back to. And, if we have an idea, we always need to remember, well, is it student-centered? Is it nurturing the BUSU relationship? Is it strengthening our identity? Is it internally enhancing BUSU within the organization? So these are just some pillar points to always fall back to if we're getting a little bit lost. So I'll go ahead and start with my specific SMART goals that I came up, and then we will go through all the vice presidents. They're here to present their own. So there is no specific format. I gave some freedom to the VPs to put it in however was best for them to present, because something that we learned in these CiviConnect workshops is that everybody is different and works differently. So I figured it would only be right for our goal setting presentation to allow everyone to do it how they wanted to do. So you'll notice that the format for each executive is slightly different how we're presenting it, and that is the reason why. So the first goal that I have here is strengthen the relationship. Did I spell this right? No, strengthen the relationship with relevant BROC admin by having 3 meetings with each of them by the end of my term and getting them to attend 1 BUSU event per semester. So obviously, as you can tell, it is time bound by the end of my semester. And I will mention that some of them are very easy to have in your goals. So the attainable and the relevant part are fairly easy as long as they align with your job. It's fairly easy to get those. You need to making them time bound is a little bit harder, and making them measurable sometimes is a little bit hard. But I think I captured everything in here in this one. And the steps we've taken so far to accomplish this goal is we've met with a majority of the senior admin, and there is a list of senior admin, and most of them we have already checked off. Certain ones that we haven't met with, we have definitely reached out to. I think the only ones that we probably haven't is like the associate vice president of grad studies, because we of course are the undergraduate student union, so there's not much reason to meet there. We've also have 3 meetings set up with Dr. Rig throughout the year. So we will be having breakfast meetings at the beginning of each term and at the end of our term in April. And we have a plan to invite her to the college and university Blue Jays game because she's a big baseball fan. Also, Brad Clark, who is the AVP of students, is going to be coming to a closed event at BUSU next Friday. We're having a bunch of student unions come visit us. And if you did not know, Brad Clark was actually the BUSU president in 1999. So he'll come and talk about his experience there and how he's translated his experience as a student union executive into a career. And then we also have some plans for some BROC admin or meet BROC admin type events. This is just to kind of humanize the admin, because there's a lot of friction usually between faculty, admin, and students. So hopefully we can try to bridge that gap this year. Next, we will go to these. So this goal is increasing executives' visibility on campus by bringing back weekly office hours. And then this is where it gets really specific. That's why sometimes they're worded a little bit weird. Being on 4 posts on our socials per month, attending 1 BUSU event per week, and 2 BROC events per month during our term. So coffee and conversations is something that we've come up with this year. It's essentially office hours. So instead of having office hours where people can just come into our offices, which is quite weird and maybe a little, I don't know if the right word would be threatening for some students, but just, you know, a little bit intimidating is the word I'm looking for. It's a little intimidating for some people coming into our offices, and, you know, it's better to have it out in an open space for our safety as well. And, you know, everybody likes some free food, so we'll give them some coffee and maybe cookies or something that we're doing, I think, as well. So this will be a way to have our office hours. They'll be out in the Isaac's Lounge. So we have these set up weekly for the fall semester already. And then I did the math earlier, and it's been 3 months as president, and I've been on 12 Instagram posts. So we're doing good on that number. And I came up with that before counting. So it just happened to be. Also, of course, there's no BUSU events in the summer, so there's not much work we can do on that part until the semester starts. But as mentioned, Smart Start and LEAP are really great ways to get involved. They're almost the only events happening on campus in the summer, and we have been there consistently. And, you know, you're getting to meet incoming students, which is really good to get them to know what BUSU is before they even start. Because I will admit, when I came to Brock, I had no idea what anything was on my first day of school. So, you know, these people are one step ahead of that I was. Let's see what else we got here. And then, so just looking ahead, we are planning to attend some Brock hosted events. So move-in summer games, the new student welcome and academic orientation, grape and wine, steel blade, and some other stuff there. And, you know, if we're ever running short and I'm trying to hit the specific numbers that I needed to add, or measurable numbers, there's always athletics that we can go to and show our faces at as well. Here we go, next one. This one, I really like how this one came out. So decolonize BUSU by expanding our advocacy efforts, implementing an Indigenous student representative, and meeting with Indigenous leaders on our campus to learn other ways we can decolonize BUSU during our term. So far, Alyssa and I have attended 2 CASA conferences, which has opened a federal advocacy route. This is really important when it comes to advocating for Indigenous students, because obviously Indigenous people are a federal jurisdiction. So it's good to have that route there. The CASA has the National Indigenous Advocacy Committee, and should we become members, full members, you are guaranteed to have a seat on this committee. Any school can provide a NIAC delegate, as they are called, and that is essentially what the Indigenous student representative would be. So we have a meeting set up with Dr. Bourgeois, who is Brock's Vice Provost of Indigenous Engagement. So hopefully we'll be able to discuss with her how we can engage Indigenous students into the advocacy process and ways that we can select an Indigenous student representative. We've been given tips by CASA on how to do this and how is like a very standard way within Indigenous culture. So hopefully we can have that discussion with her and see how that can look like in the future. And then we've also briefly chatted with Dr. Bourgeois, Carly and I have, at Dr. Riggs' installation. And we also, at the same time, we chatted with the director of the Indigenous Student Center, Cindy. So hopefully we can have some more discussions with them. And then we can also chat about ways that BUSU can improve internally as well. And then next we have, so I wanted to have a goal that was fairly broad, just at least one of them, because I know it's supposed to be specific, but I like broad because it's all encompassing and I don't feel restricted, and I feel like I can do a lot more. And that's essentially why I don't like, I'm sure Carly can definitely tell you what the wording was from Civic Connect, but it's I don't like being restricted. I like having some freedom. So reinforce BUSU's values by creating and implementing an evaluation metric to assess how effectively we are aligning with our values twice per executive term, so at the beginning and the halfway point, and implementing appropriate remedies to needed areas. So so far, the only steps taken to this is essentially what you are seeing on the screen today. So we will hopefully look, or I will hopefully look to focus on this going forward. And the BUSU values, if you're wondering, are the ones that would be from our strategic plan. So there are 5 values, and they are, we're inclusive, we're fun, there's other ones. I know them, but maybe not right now. I'm under pressure, so I can't name all 5 of them. But that's it for mine. I think we're going to go through everyone, and then we can do questions at the end. It'll just be easier. So next is Alyssa, not Carly, sorry.
Okay, hi everybody. So I structured my goals a little bit differently than James did. I have most of mine are centered on either internal enhancements or student-centered, making sure that those are the priorities that I'm like thinking of when I'm going out and doing my advocacy work and in the different meetings with stakeholders and politicians and things like that. And so I have the main goal on the screen, and then the rationale for it I'll explain a little bit after. And then I have also listed some like actionable steps of how I'm going to go about achieving these goals. So the first one you can see is focusing on strengthening the transition for the incoming BPEA in my position, so that they feel adequately prepared to take on this role. And this will be done through creating training or transition sessions to provide the VPA with more job shadowing opportunities, a forum to voice any questions, comments, or concerns that they may have regarding the position, and by introducing them to any relevant contacts that I've made during my time in this role. And obviously this will be done before the end of my term. So why I felt the need to really list this as my specific goal is last year, the person who transitioned me for this position was never actually trained to do it in the first place. And so because of that, Andy wasn't necessarily 100% sure on what she needed to prepare me for this role. And so fortunately, knock on wood, I will be here the whole year and will be able to transition who is coming into this position after me, just so that they have a better understanding of what's expected of them in this role, what the role actually involves and things like that. And so that they feel more confident when they're stepping into this position. So some of the actionable steps that I've listed is, and this is something I'm doing currently, is creating an ongoing transition doc. So as things come up, bigger things throughout the summer so far and throughout the school year, just adding little notes of, okay, this might be something that's good to include in the transition doc so that I do remember to tell them and talk about it. When the incoming BPA is hired, setting up a meeting with them soon after that hiring has taken place, just to learn from them how they learn best, what their expectations for their training or transition is, what they need from me, if there's any big concerns that they may have coming into the role. So hopefully that I can address those before it's May 1st and they're kind of have to jump in head first. And then starting the transition earlier in the year, again, I know it was a little bit tricky in the sense that all of us as execs were hired at different time points, so our transition looked really different. And Andy had started my transition right around exam time, so I didn't have time to devote a lot of time to the transitioning, but starting that a little bit earlier so that there might be shorter sessions, but more frequently, and making sure that they're aware of any projects that I might not have been able to wrap up at the end of the year that they have to now continue on when they come into office. And if there's any meetings with different stakeholders, whether that be at the admin level or at the government level, that I think they should attend so they have that contact and I can make that introduction, making sure that they have the opportunity to do that just so they're not necessarily coming in blind. So that's it for that goal. James, if you can go to the next slide, please. So the next one, I want to provide students with a forum where they can practice their advocacy and lobbying skills and get a chance to meet with local government representatives and voice any of their concerns or issues they have related to post-secondary education or what is happening under those different government stakeholders' policy portfolios. And so this is going to be done through the creation of a Pints with Politicians event. The name is still in the works. I also have potentially brews, barbecues, and political views as a different name. This is taking inspiration from Western Student Union, the USC. And so essentially Pints with Politician, how they host it is they invite all of their government representatives to come down. They give out drink tickets to the first 100 students, let's say, who come into the event. You're the first 100 students, you get a drink ticket for a free beer, and you just get a chance to talk and mingle with your different government representatives. It gives students a chance to have the advocacy experience like I'm getting this year, and hopefully engage them in a different light of what BUSU does, as opposed to just a social, I guess it is still a social event, but it's a different type of event than what BUSU is used to hosting. And I really do think it gets students involved. Hopefully it encourages students to vote, especially if in the next couple of years, there's a potential talks for a new federal election coming up to just encourage students to participate in these types of forums. Sorry, so my rationale for this, I've explained it a little bit already, but again, it provides students with the opportunity to practice their advocacy skills and understand a little bit more about what my job actually is and how it operates. It allows students to form connections with influential persons within the government sector, particularly of interest to those poli-sci students at Brock. I know that's one thing that drove me to this job. And it again allows them to voice their opinions and concerns and practice their lobbying skills. Strengthens BUSU's relationship with external government stakeholders, hopefully by providing a forum where government stakeholders can talk to students. They feel more accountable to students and more likely to actually engage them in the political process a little bit more. Like I said, the USC at Western has done it. The Ontario Tech Students Union has also done it. And both of their events were really successful last year. So again, knock on wood, same things apply here. And it also is a kind of a personal development forum where students can practice their networking skills as well as some of their interpersonal skills. And so some actionable steps for this goal is I'm going to now start working with the events team and Isaac's staff to help plan this event and make this vision come to life. I've already talked with the USC about how they run this event, so I have a good understanding of what's needed to go into planning it, and a rough guesstimate of the cost associated with planning the event as well. I've coordinated with relevant Brock departments and clubs, specifically those political clubs that we have under BUSU, to spread awareness of the event, potentially marketing in that kind of way. Coordinating with the marketing department at BUSU internally to help market the event in a fun way that makes students be like, oh yeah, I do want to come and check this out. As well as obviously emailing our local politicians, so our MPs at the federal level, our MPPs at the provincial level, and then the different city and regional councillors at the municipal level, just to let them know that this event is happening and explain a little bit more about why they should come and get involved and things like that. Next slide, please, James. So the next one, this was actually something I had started working on when I was a policy writer for BUSU last year, so it's carried over from that. I want to work with the Director of Governance Advocacy and Clubs, as well as our policy writer coordinator, to create and implement a BUSU policy paper library before the end of my term. So in order to do this, I'm hoping to write 4 policy papers over the course of my term. The first being a policy to the policy, which kind of just explains the different values based on the strategic plan of what goes into the actual policies, how they should be written, things like that, as well as a policy paper on transit, a policy paper on housing, and a policy paper on student health and wellness. So some of the sorry, my notes are all messed up here. So some of the reasons why I chose those policy papers to start with is a policy to the policies, I think, just makes sense. You need to know how you should be writing something in order to actually do that. This would be something that Kaylee and I have talked about having ready for the August board meeting to be approved by board to say, okay, these are values that do align with BUSU's priorities and their values and things like that. And this is something that does make sense to have within the policy library. Transit and housing were both chosen because those have been a lot of the advocacy work that us as a team have been doing specifically within our meetings at the municipal level, as those fall under the policy portfolios of municipal governments. And I know James has talked a lot about those meetings. So having those policies set as this is something that BUSU officially, this is our stance on, it's been approved by the board of directors, it's been done in consultation with the students. It really will help guide our advocacy. It will make my job a lot easier before we go into the meetings. It's not so much a, okay, this is what we're talking about to the rest of the team. It's okay, here's the policy. This is the bullet points we want to hit within it. And it allows for continuity and consistency for future years to come as well. And then student health and wellness was chosen. This was me being a little sneaky because for my BUSU policy paper for the fall is on student health and wellness, so this will allow me to double dip with some of the research that I'm doing. And mental health has been listed as a big priority for us this year, and it's obviously something that's on the top of the list for students as well, and so it does align with the values of students in terms of that. So that's how those policies were chosen. Some of the actionable items I've talked about a little bit already, but working with the Director of Governance, Advocacy and Clubs about what policies to start. Kaylee and I have already talked about this, and we are both on board with these are good policies to start with. If time permits, we've also talked about doing a policy on sustainability to build on some of the work that BUSU's already been doing. And as a passion of my own, I would be really interested in doing a menstrual equity policy as well. Again, those two are if time are permitting, but it is something that we have been discussing a little bit. Starting the first policy to be written is the policy to the policies, again, to be presented by board first, just to make sure that everything is good in the direction that I'm heading. And then to create a rough timeline or deadline for when the policy papers should be completed. That's kind of tying into my next goal, James, if you want to head there. So this is taking a little bit inspiration from some of the work that McMaster Students Union does. And so I want to provide students who are a part of BUSU AC the opportunity to be involved in the policy paper creation process through the implementation of a BUSU AC GA. The GA would be inspired by the one MSU does, as well as what USA does for their GA. So it would be a very similar form to that. If anyone, I know Charlie, you've been to USA. I'm not sure if anyone else has been here, but it is a similar form to that. And I'm happy to explain that at a different time. And so here, the first round of policy papers, those being the transit, housing, and health and wellness papers that I have talked to you all about, would be presented to students. Students then get a chance to debate what's in the policy, if they think there's something that should be added, if they think the wording should be changed, or if they think something should be taken out altogether. It really gives students a chance to be involved in the policy process. They can raise any questions, comments, or concerns that they may have. And again, it allows them to get a little bit more of an inside look into what I am doing in my actual role. And I think it also spreads a little bit more awareness of what USA does as well, and hopefully brings some excitement for people wanting to apply to become USA delegates. So that's the big picture for the rationale behind it. And it would also increase engagement in BUSU's advocacy efforts and make sure that the work that I'm doing when I am going out to these external meetings and advocating on behalf of students is actually reflective of what students as membership actually want and actually need. And again, and make sure that students' voices are being centered in this process. Obviously, after the BUSU ACGA has happened, those policies that have been written by students at this point would be taken to the board for final approval. But I think this is a really great way to get students involved in this process. And so some actionable steps is, again, working with Kaylee to decide what BUSU AC session this should be taking place. And I think we're looking at session number 2 for this right now. I believe that's in January. Working with the comms team to how to best market this and let students know this is a great way to get involved in the policy process. And then obviously working with our policy writer coordinator, Isabella, to actually get these policies written and ready for all of these events to be taking place. And then last goal, please, James. So the last goal kind of is a really common theme for all of them, but I think it's worth mentioning as its own thing, is increasing awareness of the advocacy work that BUSU is doing by posting my external advocacy related updates on our social media pages. And by hosting office hours, which James has already talked about, where students can come and ask any questions that they may have regarding our municipal, provincial, or federal advocacy efforts. And so part of the reason why I don't think students necessarily understand what my job is because they don't see the work that goes into it. A lot of it happens behind the scenes, where I'm sending out emails monthly to politicians saying like, hey, please come meet with us, or we really want to talk to you about this issue, or would love to provide a student perspective. It also involves being in those meetings where I am talking to politicians and saying like, look, this is what the students are telling me, things like that. But making sure that we're not necessarily recording the meetings, obviously, but just taking a quick picture after to post on our social media with a brief caption of this is what we discussed in this meeting, this is who this individual is, things like that. I think obviously it's important to meet students where they are in terms of engagement. We've found that social media is a great place to do so. And so making sure that students know I'm not just sitting in my office all day doing nothing. This is work I'm actually doing. And it's really important that you get involved and keep being interested in this. We also, like I said, want to change. Sorry, never mind. So some actionable steps to do this is working with the comms teams. We have bi-weekly meetings set up with Jessie already to say, look, these are the different events that we're attending. This is the different things. These are the dates that they're happening. Working with her to make sure that the content we're actually filming and posting for these events is being posted on our social media pages, and that it accurately represents the work that we're doing, and make sure, again, it aligns with all the goals outlined by the organization moving forward, and making content when attending advocacy related conferences. For example, James and I were just at CASA last week, and we made sure to film a video every day, giving students an update of this is what we're talking about. This is the committees that we're involved in. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And just making sure that when I'm attending those CASA, USA, or different lobby meeting events, that those are actually being posted and that students do have the chance to see these are happening. Mainly it's just a transparency piece to be like, look, this is what we're doing, this is what we're talking about, and please get involved and please care that we're doing this work. And those are it for my goals. I'm not sure who is next in the slideshow, but that's it for me.
I believe I'm up next. Yes. Okay. So yeah, as James and Alyssa both mentioned, we did all kind of structure them a little differently. So I went for kind of a broader goal for BUSU that obviously we're going to all kind of need to collectively work towards, and then like specifically how I'm working towards that. So for student-centered, my goal is by the end of the fall semester, BUSU will have successfully filled BUSU AC with a diverse group of at least 25 committed student representatives across a variety of programs. We will actively engage and center these students in decision-making processes and ensure their perspectives and needs are adequately represented in the development of student-focused initiatives and programs. There was some back and forth with me and James in trying to figure out a achievable but realistic number for how many students. I don't know if any of these folks have been on, or which folks have been on BUSAC before. We used to have more than 25, but also because without elections now, we don't necessarily know if that's going to help, and there'll be way more students because they don't need to run an election, or if without running an election, what's making them actually show up. So the hope is that there would be 25 that commit to either returning or regularly attending their committees. And also, yes, we were told not to like aim unreasonably high so that all of the goals fail. Like you want to be realistic, and if we get better than 25, that would be very ideal, but at least 25 that are like actually attending committees or return at least to the second meeting. And how I will personally be working to achieve this and working towards this is I will be meeting bi-weekly with my advisory committee to generate ideas, ask for feedback, and to inform the student voice in Senate. Of course, we have student senators and we meet as a group, but it's really important to make sure those 6 students are representing a bunch of students and not just those specific 6 students. And the more students we can get input from, the better. And that is always super helpful. So when it's those big level issues, bringing that to my advisory committee or BUSAC as a whole, or BUSU AC, sorry, as a whole to inform that is super important and a big priority for me this year. And I'll ensure that their input and perspectives are being represented into the development of at least 3 new student-focused initiatives or programs by the end of the academic year. James, you want to click next slide for me?
Ooh.
So then nurturing the Brock-BUSU relationship. This one was hard for me to narrow down because arguably my entire role is the Brock-BUSU relationship. And obviously a big part of that is what James does as well. So similar to James's, the overarching goal is that BUSU will build a strong and collaborative relationship with faculty and administration of Brock University, focusing on creating stronger interpersonal professional relationships, cultivating open communication channels, and fostering joint initiatives that significantly enhance the overall university experience for students by the end of the academic year. But obviously, again, very similar to what James has said is an overarching goal, but specifically I will focus on building relationships with the dean, faculty, other key players, whether that's the executive of student associations for certain faculties, or going to attend and talk to the advisors in their committee, the more academic side of those people who sit on Senate those sorts of things across the university, utilizing these relationships to support the creation and implementation of student-driven initiatives, specifically within Senate. So meeting with other senators, not just in those committee meetings, to discuss and build on that student-faculty collaboration. I will schedule periodic evaluations to assess as a team the progress and effectiveness of these collaborative relationships, seeking feedback to make necessary adjustments and improvements, and also creating a master list of BUSU offered services to be shared with faculty, advisors, and any other student-facing roles across the campus to improve the understanding of BUSU services and work towards a no wrong door policy where students can actually, if they end, because some students will just email their dean and have some big problem that has nothing to do with what the dean is doing. And sometimes we will have students show up at our door, show up with an email, and it is so unrelated to anything we do, but making sure that everyone kind of knows what BUSU does to be able to point them in a direction if needed, whether that's even understanding ombuds, the legal aid clinic, things like that. Yeah, next. So then strengthening the BUSU brand. By April 1st, 2024, we will enhance the accessibility and understanding of BUSU's offered services by identifying and addressing student knowledge gaps with a specific focus on first-year students through the expansion and enhancement of service information resources and marketing. Utilizing surveys to assess students' level of knowledge, we will aim to achieve a measurable 10% increase in the identifiability of BUSU services among the student population. So checking in with students around probably October, November. No point checking in on them in September because they don't know what anything is on campus, specifically those first-year students, but checking in a little bit in the year and seeing if they understand what things are BUSU provided and how to get to them versus Brock provided, and then aiming to increase that by 10% by the end of the year. And specifically, I will work to improve the understanding of BUSU services among the students by addressing those identified knowledge gaps with the creation and implementation of 3 new resources or modes of marketing our services by the end of the term. And all of this is a very summarized version of what I have, a very extensive document that James said I had to pare down to put onto this, but really going into maybe some new and unique ways that we can market services that clearly, if we are missing some students, adding more of, if it's posters, and if we just keep adding more posters are missing a certain group of students. And so finding new ways, whether that's using social media, the website, lots of things. And then also under this, one of my goals for the year that just falls under strengthening the BUSU brand is stickers, and having stickers that kind of relay our services, our identity, our offerings in a fun way, like our advocacy efforts in a fun way that isn't just like the BUSU logo, but a fun thing that identifies you as a Brock student and also puts our name out there. Yeah. Next one, James. So then internally enhancing, or internal enhancements as I had it, but James changed it because he didn't like my grammar. By December 15th, 2023, BUSU will have created a comprehensive transition plan for the incoming executive team, ensuring a seamless transfer of responsibilities, knowledge, and institutional memory, leading to a successful and productive start for the new term. We will implement a transition evaluation to be completed at various checkpoints throughout the incoming executive's terms so that they can start their term and maybe a little bit into their term, assessing how well they actually, like having it already formulated for them to assess how prepared they thought they were and to help guide them in how they maybe update that transition moving forward. Obviously similar to what Alyssa said, and I think James even mentioned a little bit on this, or if not, we've just talked about it extensively. But of course, goal for everyone that we're all going to need to work towards. And for me specifically, I'll work to have successfully facilitated the implementation of a comprehensive transition plan for the incoming executive team with mentorship opportunities, extensive knowledge sharing, adequate training, and a warm welcome to the BUSU team, ensuring they are fully equipped to start with confidence. So my goal on this specifically is in terms of like having an actual structured plan so that every executive is coming in feeling like they had a similar level of preparation. And Robert and I and James chatted about this actually a bit today in terms of those one-on-one mentorship opportunities are really great. But in how I've outlined on my end how to do this, I think it'd be really helpful for these incoming executives to have met as a team a little bit before, and even possibly maybe have like a week or two where they're working full-time in the office while we're still here, to be able to facilitate that a little bit better so that they're not hearing what the other said in their interviews for the first time on the first day of work. And then, maybe we could get some goals and priorities done even faster than this, because they will have been able to talk it out and come into their role with those intentions and a bit of a mindset of how they can work together before May 1st. And then last one, James. Oh no, that was my last one.
Okay, I will pick it up from here. So, not to repeat what they said, but for my goals, I decided to expand on each one and how I'm approaching it. And then as I speak through each one of them, I will expand more on how it relates to the basic outline that 4 of us have decided, guides our priorities for the year, and then how it relates to my goals in my portfolio or my responsibilities. So with internal enhancements, like Carly just mentioned, great seamless transition into this. I started working on creating a resource database and enhancing the database on OneDrive, because we all have access to a Microsoft account, and I'm guessing that would be the same platform that each VPSS or future VPSS would be using. So there would be a resource database created for them to properly have relationships or resources. So whether that is companies that they're reaching out to, or contact at the companies that they're reaching out to, as well as relationships with these people. So being able to help them during their transition period to have meetings with these individuals, introducing the future VPSS that helps to enhance that resource database, but also prepare them for a successful time in role. And then one thing that I'm also doing in terms of internal enhancement is making sure that I'm establishing an effective working relationship with the event manager, which in turn allows a successful year of events and programming to be delivered. So this year, Celine, who some of you might have known as the previous clubs manager, is the events manager this year. And so far, so good. We've had a few one-on-ones scheduled, and they will be continuing throughout the year. So that helps to make sure that we are working through any things or any decisions that we are making, and also just being able to split our tasks successfully. That way we are able to follow up on tasks as quickly as possible and be as efficient as possible in the turnaround time to reach out to companies or resources and building relationships so that it helps the future VPSS to have a seamless transition and come already with the event manager. I would also be working on reconstructing the data collection system for events and programs to empower the future VPSS so that they can focus on events that have been successful, find growing points, as well as create solutions for gaps in the event and programming world. So when I was transitioned into the role, I had Yasmin did a great job, but I had bare bones on resources to rely on, hence the OneDrive database being created. But I also did not have a lot of information to rely on in terms of the success or the feedback or the critical evaluation of events, because most times attendance or feedback or logistical details or debriefs were not really documented. So in terms of attendance, Jesse has worked on a new website, and the website is also enhanced or equipped with a ticketing system. So that's one way that we're going to be addressing and making sure that we have information rather than waiting till the end of the year to receive information on how many students attended and the opinions of students. So a ticketing system would help with that, as well as the website. So we'll be able to receive information and feedback. And this would also help the future VPSs have a better idea and outlook on what events need to be repeated, what events are holes or gaps that students are looking for that we can address, as well as help them plan out their year well in advance without having to start from scratch. James, next slide, please. So on the topic of being student-centered, I have notes on my iPad, by the way, so if I look down, I promise I'm not very much spaced off. I'm still very much here with everyone. So in terms of being student-centered, I'm working with the BUSU Clubs Manager to ensure that the club execs are receiving adequate training. And then this would in turn hopefully deal with reduced club conflict. And in turn, they can create and deliver engaging events and programs for their club members. As we know, BUSU delivers, or my role in the events manager roles delivers a large percentage of the events that students engage with as BUSU, but the clubs also deliver a very mighty percentage or significant chunk of that. And we have found that when club execs are not doing well or being successful, that in turn affects the success of the clubs or how students engage with these community building initiatives. So I'm working with Chloe, who's the club's manager, to work with, to prepare the fall president's meeting training, which is one of the very first training sessions that they would be having. So whether that's in terms of, teamwork or responsibilities, as well as just being able to build a great professional relationship or professional situation in the club executives, to ensure the club executives have that way that they are hopefully able to deliver a line of events throughout the year, and it reduces the amount of conflict we have to deal with, as well as that the CPC has to address if it comes to that. In terms of student-centered, something that I'm also hoping to achieve this year is ensuring that my voice as a student representative in this role is being prioritized at the decision table with full-time staff when important decisions regarding events and programming are being planned or being put to the table. This does not equate to me knowing everything about students or knowing what students would want. But from the Civic Connect training, we did learn a lot of being able to step into the role of what different student personalities, different student interests would look like. And I'm hoping that when we're planning an event or deciding, what are the logistical details that are entailed in an event, that I'm able to ensure that my voice as a student representative sitting in that meeting with, whether it's the events manager or the club's manager or whoever else it is being reflected adequately, but also taking that feedback from the street team who I'll be working with really closely and other student representatives, whether that's my advisory council or the feedback forms that I will be running throughout the school year as we plan events. James, next slide, please. So in terms of strengthening the BUSU identity, one thing that the execs and I discussed is the idea that BUSU is very much known for events in general, which is great, but sometimes the lines are blurred in terms of what the marketing for these events look like, or in terms of getting students to be present at these events and knowing this is actually being, provided to them by BUSU or they're being engaged by BUSU. So I'm hoping to collaborate better with the events team and marketing team to ensure that there is an improved presentation and outline of events being presented to students. So for this, I've been having bi-weekly meetings and weekly meetings with Jessie, who is the Director of Communications and Marketing, as well as Celine, the Events Manager, and these will continue throughout the school year. So this helps us to plan out the lineup of the events, as well as picking up on the marketing details. But it also helps to make sure, like I mentioned earlier, with being the student representative voice in the room, when these conversations are happening, making sure that when we are choosing to advertise events or share information about events, they are being done in the right way. I did receive some information and some training from the Civic Connect on how best to prompt students to, be interested in an event or be inquisitive about an event. So I'm hoping that as I go through the meetings throughout the year with Jessie and Celine, that the outline of events or the presentation, whether that's a poster or social media, is being done in a way that outlines or shares to students that this is a BUSU run event. I will also be running part of the training for the street team to ensure that they are individuals who are energetic, they're engaging students in a way that encourages them to interact with BUSU more often. The feedback that we received from students who got to interact with the street team or did not was that even though they were present by tabling or being present during events that were taking place, there was not a lot of that welcoming, warm, fun energy that is promised in our strategic plan as an organization. And the street team is very much a big part of the events team, or the second-hand part of the events team if it's not Celine or I, and just being able to make sure that the street team is able to communicate the idea of what BUSU is in terms of being fun, engaging, and a space that students can interact with. So part of the training that street team will be going through, I will be delivering some of that. And then throughout the year, there will be performance, not necessarily performance evaluation, but evaluations in terms of how they feel they're doing, as well as ways for them to improve. So it in turn helps to engage more students. Next slide, please, James. And then the last slide is nurturing or enhancing the Brock BUSU relationship. For my role, a lot of it is within that events or student engagement or fun content or fun pieces with students. So one of the things that I've been actively working on is being an active member of the orientation planning committee with multiple student facing departments. So whether that's Brock Student Life, Brock International, Brock SWAC, HRE, a lot of departments are in that orientation planning committee, as well as facilities management, to ensure that we're delivering a cohesive outline of events and minimizing the overwhelm that students face during orientation week due to multiple events taking place at the same time or repeated events. So I'm hoping that by the end of the orientation planning committee meetings, which we will be most likely rounding up in August, but I've been attending each one of these meetings religiously, making sure that we're communicating as BUSU that this is where we're at with the events we're planning, and making sure that other departments could either choose to collaborate with us, or we could also choose to collaborate with other departments in hopes that that reduces the amount of events or communication that's going out to students and lessening that idea of overwhelm for students in the first week. And then also making efforts to deliver events in collaboration with departments at Brock, and hopes to build strong relationships with these departments. So during the conversations that we've had with senior admin in the spaces where they are most likely offering events or engagement pieces to students, I've made note of, reaching out to these people and saying, if you're planning an event and it's something that BUSU can work with you on, we would love to do that, just so we are building that relationship. And that's something that when I'm working with the future VPSS on the transition, that's something that I can help them build that relationship with. And then we've also started working on this by having our one summer event, which is Pride House. So we worked with HRE and SWAC on that. And something else that we're going to be doing in terms of collaborating with departments at Brock is Brock would be launching a BU Free service desk. So during things like Clubs Week or specific weeks that BUSU is the leader on in terms of events, we will be most likely taking over that desk to ensure that we are communicating with students that, BUSU is running this, but it's also in collaboration with other departments at Brock. One more thing, I forgot one more thing. It's not my goal, but in summary of all of my goals as VPSS and in discussion with the other execs, we would love to have the board of directors be just in line with strengthening the BUSU identity. It's the same way we have the street team and making sure that they're trained to be energetic individuals and engaging. I talked with James about this, as well as Lynn, the events manager, and we would love to have the board of directors present at events in a volunteer capacity. But for events that are ticketed paid events, I'm working with the events manager, but we would hopefully have 5 free tickets for the board of directors. I'll send an email either through Kaylee or I will be sending it to you all, but there would be 5 tickets for each one of these events. I will be sending out the information, but there will also be a sign-up sheet going out to you all for Badger Fest. So if you are looking to volunteer or just be a part of the behind the scenes or lend extra hands to helping with Badger Fest, there will be a board of directors specific sign-up sheet to assist with these events. So please look out in your email for that. But that's one way that I'm really looking forward to strengthening that BUSU identity, but also letting students know that, the board of directors are part of the student representation here.
All right. Well, thank you all 4 of you for putting those together and sharing. I can tell that a lot of work and a lot of thought and effort went into putting these priorities together. So thank you for taking the time to do that and for presenting them today. Also, just for me personally, I really like how each of them were all categorized. I think that's very, very nice. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. If anyone has any questions or comments or anything, now would be your opportunity. Obviously, we do have a motion here. So if you need anything cleared up, clarified, if you have any feedback for our executives, now would be your opportunity, and I highly encourage you to speak up. So if anyone has anything. All right, so looking kind of quiet then. So I guess we'll go ahead and go into the motion. Be it resolved, the board approves the 2023-2024 executive annual priorities and goals. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Hinkle and Gabby, thank you very much. Give me one second, I'm just recording these here. All right, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. Looks like it is 11-0-0 vote. All right. Well, thank you very much for the executives for coming in. I appreciate it. If you want to stick around to hear Robert's report, more than welcome to, but you're free to go now. Real quick, to the board, it's looking kind of quiet in here, and I'm worried that we're kind of losing some people. I'm just noticing a lot of cameras are off and such. So if everybody could just jump into the chat function. And I wanted to do GIFs, but Team doesn't do GIFs or GIFs, however you say it. But go ahead and jump in the chat function, and I want everybody to send an emoji that describes how they're feeling right now. And Kaylee's already pulling up the report, so that's perfect. But if everybody can go ahead and start putting those emojis in, I'll pass the floor over to Robert, and he can begin his.
Putting my emoji in first. All right, so I've actually put together just a little subsection of what I've submitted. So I'll go through a small subsection of the report. So I guess the first piece is around the new student space. So our new student space project is moving forward. James indicated that we're meeting on Friday, this Friday, with Educational Consulting Services. So the real big nutshell piece to this is that there are two different options for us. There is option sort of one, and option one is that we actually build onto our existing building. That option one. Option two is that we actually build a new building. And so with respect to the differences between the two, it is currently $14 million more to actually add on to our building. And we lose our building, so we can't operate when we're building onto it. We're actually adding floors on the top of it. We can't exist in it. So we would literally have to close our building and our program services, food services, that type of thing for about 2 years. And so that is sort of the advocacy project that Andrea LePage and the executives and I are working on, in that we're looking to convince Brock that perhaps a new building is a little bit better than building onto the existing building. So we will certainly keep the board posted throughout the year, but that is really where we are on that project. If we can actually basically get Brock to commit land to us, we will be able to move forward. So we will continue to keep the board posted on that project. I'm optimistic that this fiscal year, we will be able to move forward. And then we'll be able to provide updates on architects and construction managers and more fun things. So that's on that front. With respect to our undergraduate enrollment, if you're ever curious, the Ontario University Application Center, which I've listed a link to, actually talks about what our enrollment looks like. As of July the 12th, we're up 0.04%. So we're actually up, which is a good thing. But that kind of gives you an idea. If you're ever interested in what enrollment looks like, there's a link there for you. I'll scroll all the way down to number 7. And so I know that there's a bunch of people that are on our board that are involved in clubs. One of the fairly exciting pieces of news for you is that the BUSU Clubs Department is looking for a different bit of a model financially by which you would go to BUSAC, and this is going to have to get approved by our board. And once you get approved by BUSAC, somewhere in the neighborhood of the next 48 to 72 hours, you would actually get your money. So you're not going to have to actually spend the money out of your own bank accounts and then get reimbursed later. You would actually get the money deposited in your bank accounts. And then at which point in time, you would be able to, you would have to account back to the student union in terms of how you spent that money, but you're not going to have to front that money anymore. So look forward to that as you're moving forward. With respect to transit, transit is moving forward, which is exciting. And we are going to be with stickers again. We've been with stickers since we started the program. We're still going to be with stickers, but I am optimistic there will be a digital solution moving forward, whether that be an app or using our swipe card. but that is beyond 23-24. Union Station. So we have signed a lease agreement with Cola's Kitchen. It is Indian food that will basically go into the Union Green space. We're also currently evaluating space for the Burrito Boys, because as Burrito Boys is left, and that should be in place by September. I will scroll down to number 13. We will onboard about 150 student employees in September. So that will keep our accounting department, our HR department, and our particularly our food and beverage operations quite busy. Item 14, Kaylee has moved forward with a new board portal. Kaylee will be providing details in the near future. She expects that for the September board meeting, at the very latest, we'll be up and running with the new portal. It's just a little bit of a nicer version of what we already have. It's nothing that's tremendously crazy, but just a little bit of a heads up for you as board members. My final two items are number 17, countdown. It's hard to believe we have 38 days and 28 business days until Badger Fest. So we're getting to the end of the road here to start our new year, which is very exciting. And then finally, on a personal note, I have completed one master's in education course this summer. I have 2 weeks remaining. I have this week plus next week to complete my second course. I basically lived in residence for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday until the end of this week. That's really helped me do that. And then I've been getting a bit more of exercise. So that is my report. Happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you for sharing, Robert. That was excellent. Really quick, Benoit did just have a question in the chat. He was asking, how are we choosing the committee members this year? Kaylee did say it's going to be the same as BUSU, same as we did in BUSAC. Well, I guess we'll just ask for volunteers, and then whoever is interested will get voted in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is that. If there are any questions for Robert, please raise your hand, because now would be the opportunity. Go ahead, Benoit.
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention, I already talked to Kaylee about it in DM, but the thing is, since we have limited number of committee members like last year, I remember, so if any vacancies would be empty, that would be filled through the election and referendum committee. But since there won't be any elections this year, how are we choosing the applicants?
I'm going to pass that off to Kaylee.
Yeah, so I can answer. It's a little loud because I've got people over, but committee seats will be chosen through BUSU AC. So if there's vacancies in that seat, they'll just be filled at the next meeting. The committees are large enough where, if there's one or two members who can no longer sit on the committee, they'll be okay for a few weeks until we can fill those vacancies. If something unexpected comes up and we do need more committee members on to fill the seats, then we can look to fill with board members. But the goal now is to have those seats filled by BUSU AC. We did talk a little bit about the appointment process, potentially changing what the structure of that looks like. So there may be, if the board does go in the direction that Kate and I presented last meeting, where there's more board members involved, there may be some shuffling done with those committees where maybe there's some more board members and less BUSU AC members. We also got some really good ideas when we spoke with Charlie and Maggie about it a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, right now there's no way in our policies for board members to sit on committees. It's just through BUSU AC, which we're recruiting for now.
Okay. Thank you, Kaylee. Hopefully that answers your question, Benoit. If you had a follow-up, please go ahead.
Yes. The thing is, yeah, so BUSU AC will be sitting on the committees, but who are choosing the BUSU AC? Because there won't be any election. Will the board members choose them, or how does that go?
So no, it's actually open to all students. So any student can sign up to join. They're recruiting right now through Smart Start, and they'll be recruiting during Badger Fest as well. And I think a video went up yesterday that featured James doing a voiceover on TikTok that was talking about BUSU AC. So it's going to be on our social media, but primarily targeted towards the first year students coming in.
Yes, so this was something we voted on last year, just to get more people involved into BUSU AC when it kind of rebranded. And through Smart Start, sorry, I'm just touching on this. We've been pushing that quite a bit to students, and I know I've talked personally to a fair amount of students about joining that as well. So just for all of your sakes as well, if you're ever talking with any future students or anybody who's interested in kind of getting involved with BUSU, definitely send them to the BUSU website to get those forms. And look at that, we've had over 20 people sign up so far, which is great because I think in BUSAC we only had like 16 seats, so already breaking records. Benoit, do you have your hand up for another question, or is that a shadow hand?
Yeah, no, that pretty much clears everything. Just like a small doubt. So let's say, since there are 16 seats, let's say if 30 to 40 people sign up, or more than 80 people sign up, so there will be a recruitment process, right?
No, so there's no maximum seats on the new BUSAC. It's going to be open to all students to join. So if we get, I would love to have 25. Like I think we'll get 25. Like I think Carly was saying. I think that's a very achievable goal. If we got 50, that would be great. If we got 100, that would be even better. I don't know how we'd manage that, but we'd figure it out. But really, it's the more the better.
Also, then how are we like putting them into committees? So let's say if we have 50 people, will we like put 30 of them into CPC? Will they join CPC meetings every week?
Yeah, so yeah, I can answer that. Each committee has a policy that outlines what its structure is. So the committees will have, I think it's 8 BUSU AC members on it. So we'll do the same thing that we would do at BUSAC in previous years. So we would get the whole council together with all the students who have signed up. And anyone who's interested in sitting on CPC, for example, can put their name forward or can be nominated by a fellow student. They can have some time to speak as to why they would be best suited for that committee. And then we'll have a vote. So we can do it very easily through Zoom, through their polls feature. And then just the top voted in students will get committee seats.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, if that is all of our questions for the day, then we can move to our last few things. I just have a couple quick notes for everybody. Our next meeting will be August 29th, I think is the day. I had it open here, 1 second. 29th, August 29th, Tuesday, August 29th. And that is about actually a week before Badger Fest starts as well. So very exciting. I'd like to remind everybody just to have your schedules cleared for the 29th. Just again, we're going to schedule it out well in advance for that. Additionally, keep an eye on your emails because I'm going to reach out to you very soon. We're going to start planning for in-person meetings in September. Personally, I just feel like in person you get a lot more done quicker. It's a little more efficient, gets people more engaged as well. So keep an eye out for that email. I'm going to get schedules from everybody and try to find a good time that fits all of our schedules. Additionally, I'd like everybody to kind of think about this. If you would prefer having one monthly meeting, or last year, I know last semester we did a bi-weekly meeting, so a meeting every other week. And personally, I think that worked out really well. It allowed us to kind of have shorter meetings and be able to cover those a little more in depth because we were able to break up the content over a few different meetings. So kind of think about, just as a general rule of thumb, if you'd prefer to have one 4-hour-long meeting in every month or 2 2-hour meetings. Now they're not going to be exactly like that, but just to give you an idea. So that is going to be coming from me. That's all the notes I had. Does anybody have anything they want to add for the day? Any questions, comments, jokes, concerns, or insults? Lay it on us. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. It was very great to see you all here. Next meeting, August 29th, and we will motion to adjourn at 6:55. Do I have a mover? Rajat. And I think I need a seconder for this as well. I don't remember. No. All right. then we're good.